Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I would do just a quick video on an issue I had with the motorhome on our last trip. Last trip was 2,200 and some miles. We went from Middleburg, Florida up to visit some family. We stayed in Elkins, West Virginia. I went from there up to Akron, Ohio, and then worked our way back. So when we left Akron, the motorhome performed perfect the entire time. We left Akron, we got on the highway for about 2.5 hours, decided to stop for lunch. We stopped for lunch, and when we left, going up the on-ramp to the freeway, the motorhome had no power. It was a struggle to get it to 45 miles an hour, merging onto the highway. Seemed like maybe, since I'd filled up recently, maybe I'd gotten some bad diesel or whatever. So I made a stop, put a bunch of fuel treatment in it, and I will leave a link to that, if I remember, in the description. I've had good luck with that before. Had what seemed like a little bit of improvement, but it was still struggling. And when I say struggling, on the 6% grades, we were getting into the truck lane and slowing down to about 20 miles an hour, sometimes 15 miles an hour on those grades. So what I did next is I made a stop off the highway. I carry new fuel filters, so I took the ladder off, the grill out, which is very quick. It's all just pop in, and the grill has those little pins, so it just lifts out. And I always carry new fuel filters. So I changed the fuel filter, both fuel filters. The fuel filter on the left, I added about 10 years ago. That filter is between the tank and the lift pump. Later on, Cummins installed that second filter as standard equipment. I changed the lift pump on it years ago, and I had some black specks in the inlet screen on the lift pump. It's not why I changed the lift pump. I changed it because it was leaking, and a gasket was no longer available for it, and there was a new and improved redesigned pump. So, not to get off on that, but it does have some bearing, I guess. So, not being sure if it was algae or rubber particles from the old fuel lines coming from the tank, I decided to add this second filter. Pretty simple job. Used AN fittings. And this filter also has a clear window on the bottom where you can check for debris. Any debris will settle to the bottom. I bought the filter and the filter mounting housing off of Amazon. Used some angle, bent up some flat stock actually, and made the mount. This has worked great. I change the fuel filters about every other year. The fuel filters that were on here were from 10 of 21, so it was exactly 2 years. So pulled over, changed the fuel filters, no improvement. The motorhome seemed to rev fine at idle. You would start it up, floor it, and it would go up to the rev limiter, but it had no power. last time I got bad gas, there was a surging and a bucking and all of that. I didn't have that at all. It ran smooth as silk, just had no power. So at this point, I'm 90% sure that I have a locked up turbo, and the engine is just not getting any boost. That was my thought. So we limped it to Tamarack. We pulled in there for the night, and I was just going to stay there the next day until I located a turbo and probably install it myself. So after the engine cooled off, I opened up the engine cover on the inside. I have good access back here, but my intent was open up the engine cover, take the boot off, and see if the impeller on the turbo spins and see if there's any obvious signs. So to walk you through that process, this is also my Advantage lift, 11,000 pound 4-post lift. Highly recommend those guys. I've had this one for about 9 months now. Great lift. Anyway, I digress. I did order replacement fuel filters since I used my spares on this trip. So we're going to walk back to the back of the motorhome here. Excuse the mess. We're actually cleaning up from the trip, so that is what it is. This is a hint to what I will be doing today. It's going to be a real quick job, and I think a permanent solution. So to gain access to the front of the engine, the floor comes out of this closet. To gain access to the majority of what you would need to work on is right here under this, and it definitely needs to be cleaned. So it just has these 4 screws here. So when I took this off and I lifted up the panel, this is what I found. Found it just like this. So again, I was thinking turbo's locked up. Not at all. So I had a wrench on this a year ago. It is one of the things that I check just out of habit. I always have. And it was not loose. So what we have here is the way I found it, and the exhaust brake, which I use all the time, was completely separated from the clevis there, the jam nut, as you can see, all the way backed off, and the exhaust brake was halfway on. So this was what was restricting the power. So before I went to bed for the evening, I went ahead, tightened that jam nut, reassembled it. It's very simple. This clevis, even though it has a C-clip on top, this pin just sits in there, right? So it's just a matter of taking the pin out, screwing it back onto the PacBrake and reattaching it. Next morning we got up, we hit the highway. It was perfect the rest of the way home. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to reassemble this with some red Loctite. And typically annually or so, every other year typically, when I change the oil in the motorhome, I lubricate this exhaust brake by PacBrake. So it's just the pivot points at the rear and at the clevis that get the lubrication. I use this very expensive high temperature lube from PacBrake. I believe what this is just, when I say very expensive, this 4-ounce bottle, which no more than what you're using, will last you forever. This 4-ounce bottle is $30. A similar bottle that looks almost identical to it, made by the Super Lube company, is $7.99. Does it have the high heat resistance that is required for the PacBrake? I'm just not sure. So, as much as it pained me, spend the $30, get the manufacturer's recommended lubricant. Normally the people that have issues with the PacBrake not being lubricated are the ones whose motorhomes sit around and they don't use their PacBrakes. My exhaust brake is on whenever the motorhome is moving, so lubrication typically isn't an issue. And you would not think that clevis would be able to thread off of that rod. But if the bolt backs up, the rod on the PacBrake can rotate and back its way out. I don't know how common this is, but I was expecting to spend a lot of money on a new turbo, replace it myself in the rest area, and go on down the road. Fortunately, the motorhome never stopped. It was slow. The exhaust temperature, according to my scan gauge, never got excessively high. I don't understand that. The coolant temperature stayed normal at 190 degrees. This Cummins ISC, uphill, downhill, winter, summer, runs at 190 to 200. It never runs above 200, no matter how hard it's working or how hard it's towing. So I guess the moral of this story is, although this was a little stressful, especially to the wife, I wasn't going to stress out too much because I didn't have any place to really be, and I had almost completely eliminated the fuel system. I was convinced it was something with the turbo, and the blessing is that although it was slow, the motorhome never stopped rolling. So we got to some place where I could fix it, and obviously that is a 5-minute fix, no tow bills. So I guess the moral of this story is even though you think that you stay up on maintenance, again, I put a wrench on that jam nut a year ago and it was tight. It just goes to show that these things happen. And you see, while I'm in here, the lift pump is there, and I got horrible lighting in here, and that's where I came off the lift pump with the new lines going to the back. Actually, from the tank to from the tank inlet line that was on the inlet on the lift pump to the filter in the back, and then back here to the inlet on the lift pump. Both those filters are 10 micron filters. When I changed the fuel filter on the road, the one with the glass observation bowl on the bottom, it's actually plastic, so be careful. The new filter did not come with one, so you got to transfer that to the new filter. It can be ordered with the new filter, but I found out that that's like a dash B part, and it's double the cost. So it just screws on, has an O-ring to seal. So I know this is rambling, but if this video helps one person with a diesel pusher motorhome, it's definitely worth the time to do. So I am going to red Loctite the threads on that, because in my opinion, I see no reason why that would ever need to be adjusted, right? So you just take that lever, it's currently in the halfway position as I found it, and move it all the way down. That has the flap inside the exhaust tubing there open, right? So, and it's got a stop on it. So in my mind, once you adjust the clevis to that and tighten up the jam nut, there should be no reason for it to ever come apart again. So with that being said, I'm going to do that, put this thing back together, and carry on with the rest of my motorhome maintenance stuff. The generator's due for an oil change. It has a Onan 8000 diesel. And then my post-trip checks that I do are really just front to back. I put wrenches on everything I see. I look for leaks. That way, when I'm ready for the next long trip, I don't need to do it then. I'll just do a quick visual of everything and go. Okay, again, hope this helps someone. It was definitely a cheap, easy, and free fix on the highway. And so let me red Loctite this thing, get it back together, and it should be good forever and ever. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.